there was this story. Let me bring up the video. So there was a letter that was signed by a bunch of student groups in Harvard that was speaking out against Israel, and then now there's been a big backlash. Sponsorship, like donors, I think the donors, like very large donors from the university, are threatening to pull their funding. There's CEOs that are threatening to not hire any of those students that have signed the letter. And there's just all of this really crazy, backlash against those people. Now, there's a couple of leadership decisions in here, Dr. Rob. There's a leadership decision of the CEOs and everything like that, of pulling their, donors pulling their funding or pulling their support and not hiring students and stuff like that. Let's talk about that decision first of all, and then I want to go on to talking about the decision of someone actually signing a letter like this. So, first of all, how do you as a CEO or as a large donor for some a wealthy person, how do you make that decision to pull your funding or pull your support for a university over a controversial statement like this?
Look, I think it's fine to do something like that because you are an agent, you're a free agent, and you're giving of your own wealth to an organisation. And I think if there's some incident that makes you feel that there's a mismatch between your own sense of ethics and the ethics that are being tolerated or even encouraged in that institution, I think you should make the decision to pull your funding. There's a range of other actions that could be taken as well, like you could pick up the phone and have a chat. Mm-hmm. But I certainly think it's within your rights to say, no, look, this is not something that I want to support, and to remove your support. So, and look, I think you have to make that decision because you're a steward of the resources that God has given you. And so I think, look, having wealth is an enormous responsibility.
Yeah.
It's an enormous responsibility because we are but stewards of what God has placed in our hands, often through our hard work, often through the risks that we've taken in business, but nevertheless, we do not own anything. We steward what God has released into our hands. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for anybody to sit back and reflect on events such as those that we've seen in recent times and make a choice as to how best might I steward those resources that I have into the future.
Yep. So you and I spoke earlier about, like before the podcast, about be careful about hiring someone from university nowadays to see whether they actually have learnt anything. With these businesses saying, these organizations saying, well, we're not going to hire those people. How does that play into things where we're trying to hire people and now looking at something that they did at university?
Look, I wouldn't be inclined to do that because people make stupid decisions.
Especially university students.
Young people make more stupid decisions perhaps because you have to live life in order to gain wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. So, look, my reluctance to hiring anybody with a university degree is that I don't think that piece of paper really tells us much anymore about what critical thinking skills a person has developed, because universities have become largely based on slogans and not serious research and serious philosophical thinking. They hardly teach philosophy anymore for a start. So I just I think most of the time a degree is not worth the piece of paper it's written on. So I think I said to you I would never employ a university graduate without putting them on probation for a period of time and without spending a fair bit of time trying to find out what they actually know. So that's my bias. And I think this has happened in universities over the last 15 years or so, but it's been gradually creeping in there over a long period of time. But I wouldn't make a decision over something like this if a student was very active politically in their university days, and maybe they might have been strongly Marxist, but, growing up, having a family changes people significantly. Yes. And I would rather go through a fairly stringent process of selection where I just ask people, tell me about this, tell me about your university days. Tell me how you contributed to the broader community of that university. In most cases, it's actually illegal to ask direct questions, so don't ask direct questions. Yep. For example, here in Australia, when you're interviewing somebody, you couldn't say, well, you're a member of a student political party while you were studying your degree. You can't do that because that would be discriminatory. But it's not discriminatory to ask somebody, well, just tell me about what you did as a university student in terms of being part of the community. Yeah. Get them to tell their story and their values will emerge. But I certainly wouldn't like boycott a graduate because they did something stupid during their university days. I think that's just silly, quite frankly.
Yeah. I think that this is a really important lesson for leaders is when we are looking at the hiring process, I suppose on both sides of the story of don't hire someone immediately because they have a university degree, and also don't not hire someone just because they happen to sign a letter or something like that. We need to, especially with our hiring process, we need to go through a process, get to know people. We teach all of our clients do a 13-week induction program where we take them through a full gamut of things to set them up. Actually, one of our clients, we were able to set up a 12-month probationary period as well. And so it allowed us to be able to really make sure that we trained the person properly, but also made sure that they fit within our culture. Everything that they said that they knew, they knew. Everything they said that they did, they did. Everything that, having time. Let's not be so quick to hire someone because they've got some things on a piece of paper, but also let's not be quick to discredit people just because they happen to support something or whatever. I think that there's, as Dr. Rod said, we change. People change, and we get caught up in something. We may sign something or whatever, and when we're younger, but we change. This whole thing of going back on Twitter and finding something that someone posted 10 years ago and try to if Twitter was even around then, but going back 5 years to find something that someone posted, their views have probably changed. So have a conversation with them, see if they've grown, because it may be worthwhile you understanding what their values are, because we as leaders do need to hire people on our team that align our values 100%. But let's give that person an opportunity to be able to share rather than just immediately discrediting them. Hey, you just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership Podcast. If you like that, hit the like button and put a comment below. Hey, if you want to watch more videos like this, check out our channel, and while you're there, make sure you subscribe.